morning, everyone.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Et pour la fête hier soir, qu'en est-il? Vous vous êtes bien amusés. Donc, on avait le thème du Mexique pendant la soirée. Et lorsque j'ai quitté la fête, j'avais l'impression que tout le monde était toujours en train de bien s'amuser. Donc, merci d'être là, présente ce matin. Nous allons commencer nos dernières séances maintenant pour le forum de 2014. Et lors de cette première séance, j'aimerais que vous soyez bien assises parce que nous allons voyager 10 000 kilomètres jusqu'au Japon. Nous avons donc une séance tout à fait intéressante. Ça s'appelle Abe's womenomics. Pourquoi nous en avons besoin et pourquoi pas simplement au Japon? Nous avons aussi un panel d'intervenants très intéressant. Peut-être que vous vous souvenez bien que Christine Lagarde nous a fait une très bonne présentation sur le Japon. Elle a parlé donc des problèmes socio-économiques. Elle nous a rappelé qu'il y a une population vieillissante, mais beaucoup de créativité qui se passe actuellement au Japon. J'aimerais donc présenter la modératrice, Marina Niforos. C'est le PDG de Logos Global Advisors. Et les intervenants seront Marie-Françoise Damesin, vice-présidente exécutive en charge des ressources humaines pour l'Alliance Renault-Naissant. Nous avons aussi Marwan Lahoud, en chef de stratégie et responsable de marketing pour Airbus. Et en dernier lieu, Kaori Sasaki, fondatrice PDG de eWoman et Unico International. À vous, mesdames. Merci, Gillian. Merci à tout le monde d'être présent aujourd'hui. Je crois qu'on n'aurait pas pu avoir une meilleure introduction donc pour notre sujet de ce matin. Madame Lagarde nous a bien facilité la tâche. Elle a fait elle nous a expliqué le cas commercial de cette question. Nous avons avec nous aujourd'hui donc de très bons panélistes, des leaders dans le monde des affaires qui vont nous aider à analyser la situation depuis le point de vue des opérations et comment elles voient ce défi qui est bien complexe, ce qu'elles font au sein de leur société et comment est-ce qu'elles sont engagés pour changer la donne. Et que pouvons-nous nous attendre donc pour l'avenir? Qu'est-ce qu'il faudrait faire? Quels sont les défis pour l'avenir à affronter? Donc, je vais faire tout d'abord une petite introduction. Kaori Sasaki, qui est la fondatrice et j'espère que je le prononce bien, Unico International. Vous êtes aussi fondatrice de eWoman Inc. Marwan Lahoud, qui est PDG du groupe Airbus. Marie-Françoise Damesin aussi, qui est vice-président exécutif des ressources humaines pour l'Alliance Renault-Naissant. Et merci à vous toutes d'être présentes aujourd'hui. Avant de vous donner le micro, j'aimerais partager avec vous et avec notre public quelques chiffres, parce que je crois que les chiffres sont importants pour justement encadrer nos discussions et pour comprendre le chemin que nous avons parcouru et pour voir où nous allons. Le Japon, selon
ranks 105 out of 136 countries. And it actually went down 4 places since the previous year. So that's somewhat of a disquieting statistics if we actually agree with rankings. And they identified 3 main areas where there's persistent gaps. One was the participation gap on labor force. There's only 63% of women actively engaged in the labor force. That's one of the lowest in the OECD countries. A remuneration gap. So women are consistently, on average, on median salaries, they perceive around half of a male equivalent salary. And there's an advancement gap. So only 9% of women in senior positions in Japan, 2% on boards, and 1% actually in CEO level or ex-com positions. So we see that the government, faced with all the other socioeconomic issues that Madame Lagarde stressed yesterday, declining fertility rates, an aging population, a very highly skilled women talent pool, has mobilized to actually say, okay, this is women's economic empowerment is the cornerstone of my growth strategy. And it's not only important for Japan, because Japan is being the third industrial power in the world. When they're having competitiveness issues, the whole global economy is having a competitiveness issue. So I will turn the floor to Kaori, who has been involved for several years, dare I say, a couple of decades, mobilizing on this issue. She's also a member of the Regulatory Reform Council of the government to help us understand a little bit what mobilized Prime Minister Abe and his administration to actually embark on such an ambitious program. And I just state for the record that the ambition is to move from 13%, others say 9%, to 30 by 2020. So tell us what is happening concretely on the ground, and what made this happen? Why now?
Well, thank you very much. The Japan, as you just mentioned, as the gender gap in WEF says, it's like 105 out of 136 countries. Used to be 99, and last year is 101, and now 105. So it's getting worse and worse. However, that the government is saying that the reflection of what's the reality maybe takes 2 years to be ranking. So that maybe in 2 years and 3 years, it's going to be a little bit better. Well, that the Prime Minister, the good thing about the Prime Ministers keeps saying about the recently started saying and keeps saying about the women's issue is that he moved this issue from CSR or equal opportunity issues to economic issues. As the Christian Regal says that Japan has the aging populations and blah, 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 so that there are so many reasons for women to participate in the economy. However, not because of not just to filling out the number of the labor force, but I myself believe that the participation of women is the very strength of diversity in thinking, so that the innovation would come and economy growth. Well, the equal opportunity law in Japan has passed 30 years ago. It's 1986. Before that, the women's applicant from the university graduate apply for the companies to even attend orientation to enter a company. They are refused by the name of the women's the names. However, after the passing the equal opportunity law, then those equality issue has surfacely gone. However, as recently that OECD had a report that the adult skill in the whole world, like maybe the educations and ethics and all that, the Japanese men and women ranked #1 in the whole world. So that the other education-wise and other skill, adult skill-wise, the Japanese women are very highly skilled. However, 105 in ranking, meaning that really the waste of the resource. That's the government and the companies and start realizing. And so that now that we are really forcing from the private sectors and we as a women and also the government start and really working on this issue very hard. And the good thing is that Prime Minister keeps saying it. Like when he starts saying it in UN, Davos, and all over the places, as the more he says that, the more he believes it. The more he says that, it's like, automatically it's like a brainwashing him by himself. So that I am actually asked by a lot of media that how I evaluate or, his meaning, the real meaning. But I told everybody that I don't care if you really understand all the details and all that. But the most important thing is the top leader keeps saying that this issue is very, very essential for the economic growth and also the better life.
You also mentioned to me in our prior conversation that there are a series of legislative proposals on the table concerning childcare and other important issues on the infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a bit complicated. Japan has a very unique labor systems and all those other systems. But now that the parliament is going on now, and then the minister, a lot of there's the legislations is going on and discussed under the parliament that. Like a positive action for the women, because the Prime Minister is trying to set and keep saying that 30% by 2020 by the management level of women. That the business associations are still hesitant to really actually say yes to that, but then they are trying to have their own set goals. By law, maybe now that the law is going to say that force the companies to declare the number of the goal and also put those like a number, percentage of the women's in management level in their fiscal report. Also that the government is going to put a lot of budget on the women-owned business to be supported. So they're working on it and it's still in a discussion in the legislation. The child care in hand, that there's regulatory reform councils has been banned a lot of like regulations so that the better or easier entry to support the child care system for the private sectors and supporting the child care system so that it will be increase the number of the child care center.
You touched there on a very interesting topic, saying some companies are somewhat hesitant to jump on board very enthusiastically. So tell us a little bit more about what the reaction has been from some of the private sector companies, but also by society as large, because I understand one is the regulatory aspect and sort of infrastructure issues, which will allow women, but there are also a lot of cultural issues. Can you discuss a little bit?
Yes, that the Japanese business world is really dominated by the male in 60s and 70s. Not only business, but politics and media as well. So we are struggling and then actively working, however, that those decision makers are there. I'm sitting on board for the two public companies, and then and so that the leaders in Japan started understanding that accepting women on board or having like a management level, more women in management level is important. So they're recently very open to discuss about this issue publicly. And then we have a male champion system also, so that some of the CEOs started signing and declarations and all that. However, when we really start talking about, so how many percentage that you're targeting to, then each CEO starts saying that, well, maybe 15%, well, 10%, well, 19%. And why? That the Prime Minister is saying 30%. And they said, well, it depends on the industry, it depends on the companies, and we only have like 3% now, so 10% is big enough, no, whatever. So that they have a lot of excuse to say that it should be naturally growing, or they couldn't find the right women to be advanced. So I said to those CEOs that, well, but I believe personally that the periodical quota system is very essential to the Japanese society at this moment. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen naturally. And then they goes that, well, what happens if female fails? I mean, we cannot follow the great female leaders. And so, well, men fail as well, so that so that you don't need to find the right person, and every 100% of female should be successful. I mean, we try and error. I mean, we just learn by little, so that that's the discussions going on. But still, the CEO has been has a bit hesitation of declaring that the 30% by 2020. Not many of them. I haven't really met anybody saying that.
Who's accepting that?
Right, 30%, no.
Okay, so ambitious.
Yeah, but
So-
that's why that I need like a Christian Lagarde and this forum, like international pressure is very, very needed. I would like everybody in this audience, like when you have a Japanese colleague or client, whatever, I would like everybody to keep saying that, oh, Japan is targeting the 30% by 2020. And then those like a civil pressure from all over the places is really making forward.
So we all have to brainwash ourselves.
Right, that's true.
So I will turn now to Marie-Françoise. You have actually been with Renault for quite a long time, since I believe 1984. You're now in charge of the alliance, and so 450,000 people. That's quite a significant number. So you can give us a perspective actually of a multinational that's very present in a European country, but also is an insider in Japan. And according to the stats that I've seen, I'd like you to share a little bit more about that, you're actually a star performer through Nissan. Can you say a little bit about how that came about, what some of the actual measures that you undertook to get where you got, and what do you think are some of the issues that brought you along that journey?
Yes, thank you very much, Marina. I think, as Kaori mentioned, we had a very strong supporter, which is our CEO, Carlos Ghosn. And Carlos Ghosn started really to push on diversity a long time ago now, almost more than 10 years. And in fact, we have quite good records, honestly speaking. I think the automotive industry is not the most female industry, but we have very good records. So in Renault now, we have more than 17% of female, but we have 18% of our managers who are female and 20% at the executive committee. So we have a good transformation rate, and the objective, of course, is to attract more women to the industry. In Nissan, we have now 10% of female managers, 7% in Japan. You may say it's not that much, but in 2004, there were only 1.6% female manager. So it's been multiplied by 4. And if we compare to our competitors, they all are at about 1%. So with 7%, Nissan is really one of the strong leaders on gender diversity. And for that, we have won many prizes as well in Japan. Why did we did that? In fact, as it was clearly mentioned during the forum, we did that because we strongly believe this is a business issue. And when we look at the automotive business, we want to face 3 topics. The first one is customer satisfaction. So we need in our teams to reflect what the customer wants. I don't think a Korean woman would like absolutely only that the car will be designed by a Spanish man. So we really need to have a lot of different perspective on the business. For instance, recently we did studies and we discovered that 90% of the female want to have a salesperson as a female, while 50% of male want to have a female. So we are strongly pushing to have much more female in marketing and sales, and both in Renault and Nissan, we are recruiting 50% of the workforce as female. Second topic, innovation. It's true, if we have a diverse team, gender, but more diverse, this brings much more idea. I think probably it's been mentioned during this forum, but in Renault, when we did the Capture, which is a really good seller car, we did a team of 50% male, 15% female, and the female really brought a lot of great initiative, like the sliding drawer in the car, like the special removable house, I don't know, you say that, covers, and really this was brought by the team, and this is a very successful car, so 50% male, 50% female. And the last point, of course, as HR, and I think it's very important in terms of motivation, because people, wherever they are in the world, whatever is their nationality, age, sex, they need to have the feeling they have the same opportunities within the company. So this is the 3 reasons why we have been moving on diversity and gender diversity. And now, how to make it, because that's the most difficult. The president very often say 5% strategy, 95% execution. So we are executing. And the execution comes from first, you need to have objective and to have measurable objective, and you need to have objective that you review regularly. Every year we come to executive committee in Renault or Nissan to say what are the progress which have been done. After that, you need, of course, to work on recruitment. So we need to attract much more women. That's why we are trying to say that automotive is for women. Please, lady, listen. There's fantastic opportunities, and we are developing partnership with university to say, my job has no gender, how you can work in the automotive industry being a woman. And we are talking to very young ladies as well, because very often it starts at high school and then in university. So we need to recruit more women with quotas. We need then, develop the women. So for instance, we have system of career planning, and we want to have a woman each time in the succession planning. So you usually have 3 persons, and we are struggling to get at least 1 woman there. Then you need a lot of support inside the company. We do mentoring. As well, we educate the other, the male and some female as well about diversity. What does it mean? How it can bring more business inside. So this is a few examples of the action plan currently going on. On top of that, we have created a network called in Renault, called Women at Renault. It's the first social network, 4,500 members. We have male in it, roughly 20%. And this network is a good occasion in each of the major countries to make the women talk together, propose initiative to the management, not only on their day-to-day activity, but as well on the business side. So that's the few of the measures we have put in place. So very dedicated commitment and follow-up. For me, that's the success.
If I may follow up, do you do something differently, for example, do you have uniform policies on that, or do you tailor it? For example, in Japan, did you do anything differently to go from 1% to 7%? Did you adapt the policies you already had in Renault? Did the friction help between the two? Can you discuss it?
I think what is good in the Renault-Nissan alliance is that we are in constant benchmarking. So every good idea, we discuss it. Of course, you have to adapt it because the situation is a bit different. In Japan, for instance, you have very long hours, and this is one of the key issues. Renault has created nursery gardens inside the company. Nissan has done some, 3 of them at the moment. But this is already a first step of the company. But the cultural change, in my view, is much more stronger in Japan than maybe it is at the moment in Europe. It's stronger because you need to think about what's the role of the woman in the company, how they deal with education of children, how they deal with elderly people. This is something very strong in Japan that we have to address. Then we have to address as well the very practical stuff. As I told you, as a company, we have invested in nursery care, but this is still very limited. And as well, we know that if women have nursery care, they are much more likely to go back to work than if they don't have it. And then the last point, which is universal, is what Christine Lagarde told us. We need to have much more confidence in ourselves. We need to dare much more. We need not to be afraid. I just want to give you a statistic that always surprised me so much. There's been a survey about young girls and boys at 16 years old studying mathematicals. And we're asking them, do you think you are capable to do scientific studies? 83% of the males say yes. Only 52% of the females say yes. Why? They were exactly at the same level. So this is really something absolutely necessary to do and to achieve.
So, in that context where even women hold themselves back, do you think that the proposed reforms from the Abe government are too ambitious? I mean, given the data you just gave us, they're asking you to triple your performance in the next 6 years. It's quite ambitious. Do you think it's feasible? Do you think it's an aspirational goal? And how do you think the challenges remain for you as a company that operates there?
What I really like with what Abe-san has said, and I think the people in Nissan are very supportive of that, is that he has created objective and action plan. That's exactly what we have done. Now what is important is to fight into the direction, to progress every year, to review the action plan, and to be sure we don't change of direction. It's not just 2014, the year of the women, and 2015, something else. So this is extremely important. I think on this topic, in Japan, 50% of women come out of university, 1% of them are executive. It's not possible. It's a business issue, it's a society issue, so I'm very happy that the government is supporting a lot. Government has to do its part, company has to do their part as well. Company cannot wait that everything is finalized by government. Leaders have a strong role to play there. Of course, Abe-san is a strong leader. Carlos Ghosn is very much pushing on that one. And as well, every male and female within the company has to support that. Each time I go to Japan, I spend, for instance, 1 hour on diversity with the team to say, how can I help you? How can we break? How can we move forward faster? So that's really the objective. So I think at the end of the day, we need to engage all the stakeholders to achieve it.
Thank you, Marie-Françoise. Marwan, last but not least, you're here as a representative at the head of operations of a major player, although European on origin. You're one of the 2 players in a duopolistic market. So the challenges and the weight of responsibility that lies in having an active role in this area is obviously huge because of your entire supply chain. So not just your company, but the entire chain. Women have been traditionally absent from the sector. You're facing STEM issues, pipeline issues at the entry, as well as later on in their careers. So can you explain a little bit, how do you deal with this? You're also a little bit further removed from consumer pressure because obviously here 85% of women buy cars, not necessarily for planes. So how do we address those issues when we're on the top of a company like that? What are the challenges you face? And also, how important this is for you?
First of all, it's a matter of leadership. And leaders need to be convinced. I am convinced, I am deeply convinced that we cannot afford to live with half of the planet. We need the other half. And when you've stated that, I'm stating obvious matters, all derives. Let me elaborate a bit. Yes, aerospace is a male industry. 17% of our employees are females in Airbus Group. If I take a broader scope and I look at the aerospace as a whole, we are around 15%. Why? Traditions, history, I don't insist on that. But the main block is coming from stereotypes. You mentioned scientific studies. 34% in our area of operation, I would say, 34% of the high school students take on scientific and technical studies, and only 14% of the graduates are female. 34% female from high school to science and technology, and only 14% graduates. So we need to do something about that. It starts there. I'm not saying that it's the only thing we need to do, but if we want to change in a durable manner, long term, the situation, we need to start there. And all the more as it is a disease of developed countries. If you go, I was recently in a science and technology university in Turkey, more than half of the students were female. 40% of the graduates are female. There are other issues for female in emerging or less developed countries, but at least from an economic standpoint, no one questions that science, technology, studies, it's even looked after as a way to escape other burdens. So it cannot be accepted that in developed countries, when you are a young girl, 14, 16, you're told, math, physics, forget it. Go do something else. This is not the only thing to be done. We also need inside the company to take care of the promotion of women in the qualified jobs. So it's very simple actions. I mean, we don't need to be sophisticated in that. One of the rules we have at the executive committee of the Airbus Group is for each job, whatever the job, we need at least one, sometimes two female candidates. This is not a recipe for immediate success for those female, but at least they are considered. It is not just that, okay, we only have men for this job. And it starts paying off. It takes time, it's difficult, it's a cultural change. Any manager who is offering a position will tell you, yeah, but this position is very special, or I'm not finding the right profile, or, you know, flight tests, or running a production plant. The basic rule is no stereotypes. There is no gender difference for any position. Any position. This should be the starting point. Then you need to have targets, because what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So you need to have targets. Today, as I said, 17% of our population is female. Our intent is to be up to 25% by 2020. One may see that as not ambitious enough. And I see it not ambitious enough. But if we achieve the 25% with certainty, then we will move to the next one. The target being 50-50. Half of the population is female, so half of the population in my company should be female. Logic, I mean, no one can argue with that. And if anybody argues, I'm happy to convince. Because I am convinced. And all the leaders in the group are. Executive population, because immediately when we talk about women in industry or in economic job, we talk about, yeah, okay, fine, but what about the leadership jobs? Today, in the executive population is slightly below the 17% we are mentioning. We are around 15.5 or, okay, doesn't matter. What is the objective? The objective, again, is long-term 50-50, and for 2020 it is 20%. So the increase in executive population needs to follow the pace, if not exceed the pace of the increase of the overall population, because you have this role model influence that we need to stimulate. When ladies see other ladies in position, they are stimulated. They dare. I wasn't there. I couldn't listen to Christine Lagarde, but I've had this discussion with her so many times. The main issue with you ladies, and allow me to say it this way, is you don't dare enough. Before applying to a position, you wait to have 120% of the skills required. Any of your male colleagues with 50%, oh, I can play it. I throw my hat on the table. I can, and this is what needs to change. No reserved positions, no gender reserved jobs. You can do any job. Sometimes much better than men. Because it's a different perspective, it's a different angle, it's a different approach. I mean, I'm in favor of sharing and 50-50. I'm not negating the differences. The differences are there, and this is where richness comes from, diversity. If we were all alike, and sometimes we are all alike in executive committees, we all wear gray suits and dark ties. Sometimes having a different approach, a different touch, is very useful. So inside the group, in a nutshell, we are determined, from the board to the executive committee and the top executive population, we want to achieve this change, this rebalancing of the population, and for that, recipes are almost the same. Targets, mentoring was mentioned, encouraging the ladies to move, networking between the ladies. I mean, it's very simple. Supporting and helping them in their life in the company. Supporting, by the way, all the employees. It shouldn't be, I mean, mention childcare. Childcare is valid for all of us. So very simple, determination, moving towards 2020 objectives, and then beyond 2020, increase the objectives, the ultimate one being 50-50.
Thank you. I think that was a great conclusion to our aspirations for 2020. So I will give you each, as we agreed, 30 seconds really, to say the 3 things that you think are the critical success factors. We're coming at the end of another successful Women's Forum conference. Engage the future. So what are the 3 critical success factors? We've discussed the role of the state. We've discussed enlightened leadership and commitment from corporate. We've discussed international pressure and mobilization. The floor is yours.
All right. The first is network. That I've been doing, producing the largest business women's conference in Japan every year, that 1,000 women get together, and then just meet each other's and role models, and sometimes the seniors, and that's a powerful things. And sometimes networking could be a support to you, sometimes a pressure, international pressure to you. So the network is very important to move these things forward. The second is the policy for men. Japan has so many gentlemen, and so we women requested to work and childcare, work and elder care. They were very kind enough to create so many policies for us. So we are thankful that we are working triple as much as men. So now we don't need any gentlemen anymore. We'd like policies for men to join us. So this is about a stage that not a women issue, but actually it's a men's issue. The third is CEO's commitment. I've been telling CEOs, and I'm writing and talking to CEOs, that the women on board, the percentage of women on board are so easy. There's no legislation or anything is needed. If one male CEO decides that we're going to have 3 female board members next year, that's it, right? So that we have to really persuade and influence male CEOs in the world that it's only your commitment is needed. So those are the 3 key points that I would like to say.
Marie-Françoise?
I really think that we have to engage all the stakeholders, government, CEOs, HR, management within the company. So that's very, very important. Second thing for me, we need to have a dedicated objective and action plan and to be following it regularly. And third time, I think it's engage all the women. We can move things. I've been in the business for now more than 35 years, and if I look at how things were 35 years ago, there's been a lot of increase, a lot of things that have moved up. But we still need to fight and to be feeling confident enough to fight for it.
Marwan, you have the last word.
Trying not to repeat myself, I'll not give success factors, I'll give success indicators. One of the first success indicators for me is that we will have succeeded when naturally, in a meeting like this one, we will have 50% of male audience. The second success indicator for me was mentioned earlier. What about a woman that fails? We will have succeeded when this will not be a question any longer. And the third one is when we will have to moderate women from competing.
I think we got our indicators, and with that we conclude our panel. Thanks to the panelists and thanks to all of you. And perhaps the next test will be the Women's Forum in Japan. That will be in 2015. 50% men, 50% women. That's a high bar, so keep tuned.
Thank you very much. Thank you.